At approximately 7 o'clock this morning, the Texas Water Development Board published the daily reservoir storage update for the Choke Canyon Reservoir in McMullen County, South Texas. The published reading, 7.2% of total capacity. 140 miles to the southeast, Lake Corpus Christi in San Patricio County published a reading of 11.2% of capacity. Together, the two reservoirs constitute the entire surface water supply for the city of Corpus Christi, the seventh largest city in Texas, with a metropolitan area population of approximately 360,000 residents. Combined system storage stands at 8.5%. That is the lowest combined storage figure in the published modern record for the Corpus Christi water supply, which has been continuously monitored since the Choke Canyon Dam was completed in 1982. The City of Corpus Christi's published Drought Contingency Plan defines 4 operational stages and a 5th emergency declaration framework. The city is currently operating under Stage 3. The Stage 4 trigger is combined storage at 20%. The reservoirs crossed that trigger in February of 2026. The Stage 5 emergency trigger, which activates mandatory cuts to industrial and municipal users and authorizes the city to commandeer private water assets under Texas Water Code. Chapter 11 has been forecast in the city's most recently published water plan to be reached as early as November of 2026. November is 6 months away. The reservoirs are dropping faster than the city's published mid-range scenario anticipated. The petroleum refining industry in the Corpus Christi region, which produces approximately 5% of the United States' refined liquid fuels, and which depends on the Lake Corpus Christi water supply for its cooling, processing, and steam operations, has begun publishing operational contingency assessments to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. The published contingency scenarios include partial production curtailment, shifts to brackish water supplementation, and, in the most severe scenarios, temporary plant shutdowns. Lake Mead at 1,052 feet, the Edwards Aquifer at Stage 5 in Uvalde, and now Corpus Christi at 8.5%. The American water crisis is not regional. The federal monitoring data published this month covers reservoirs and aquifers across 3 different mountain ranges, 2 different ocean basins, 4 different sedimentary systems, and at least 7 different state water authorities. The pattern is national. This is fractured ground. We document the geological and hydrological crises reshaping the United States, week by week. This episode is the Corpus Christi water supply collapse, what 8.5% combined storage actually means at the household level, and what the projected November emergency declaration would set in motion for South Texas Gulf Coast residents. Geography matters. Corpus Christi sits on the Gulf of Mexico coast at the mouth of the Nueces River. The Nueces River Basin drains approximately 17,000 square miles of South Texas brush country and is the city's primary source of inflow. The Choke Canyon Dam, completed in 1982, impounds the Frio River, the largest tributary of the Nueces. Choke Canyon Reservoir is the larger of the 2 storage assets, with a total capacity of approximately 695,000 acre-feet at full pool. Lake Corpus Christi, the smaller and older reservoir, was completed in its current configuration in 1958 and has a capacity of approximately 257,000 acre-feet. Combined system capacity at full pool is roughly 950,000 acre-feet. At 8.5% of capacity, the system currently holds approximately 80,000 acre-feet of water. That is enough water to supply the metropolitan area at current usage rates for approximately 14 to 16 months under continuous Stage 3 restrictions. 16 months. That is the published outer bound. The city's own forecasting model places the realistic horizon at 6 to 9 months because evaporation losses on the exposed reservoir bottoms accelerate as the water surface area shrinks, and because the city has no published mandate to enforce the Stage 3 watering reductions on industrial customers, which remain the largest single category of demand. Engineered in the 1970s design phase, the Choke Canyon and Lake Corpus Christi reservoir system was built to provide what the original Texas Water Development Board specification called a, quote, drought of record reliability, sufficient storage to survive a repeat of the most severe drought in the historical Texas record, which at the time of design was the 1950 to 1957 drought. The drought of record specification was the planning baseline for nearly every major Texas reservoir built between 1955 and 1990. The system was sized to outlast the worst documented historical drought. The current drought, beginning in October 2022 and continuous through the present 43 months later, has exceeded the duration of the drought of record. The reservoir system is now in conditions worse than the engineering basis of design contemplated. The Stage 5 emergency declaration in the City of Corpus Christi's published Drought Contingency Plan activates a set of mandatory actions that most residents have not read and most viewers will not have heard described. Stage 5 mandates an immediate cessation of all non-essential outdoor water use, under penalty of citation and fine. Stage 5 authorizes the city to impose mandatory percentage reductions on industrial water customers by category, with the published reduction floors set at 20% for refineries, 30% for petrochemical manufacturing, and 25% for shipping and port operations. Stage 5 activates a mandatory residential rate restructure that increases the cost of water above a per-household threshold by approximately 50%. Stage 5 permits the city, under Texas Water Code Chapter 11, to temporarily commandeer private wells, private rainwater catchment systems, and private treated water storage to meet municipal demand. Stage 5 also triggers a published mutual aid agreement with the Lower Colorado River Authority for emergency interconnection. But the engineering studies for that interconnection, which would require an approximately 110-mile water transmission line, place the construction timeline at 4 to 7 years and the cost at approximately $400 million. The interconnection does not exist as built infrastructure. It exists as a mutual aid agreement on paper. This is the kind of update the Texas Water Development Board publishes daily. The Bureau of Reclamation publishes weekly. The United States Geological Survey publishes on multiple cycles. And every state water resource agency publishes on its own schedule. The Fractured Ground Channel documents them as they happen. If you want the next one in your feed, the subscribe button below the video is the only way the algorithm will reliably send it to you. We do not run an email list. The channel is the entire delivery mechanism. For households in the Corpus Christi metropolitan area specifically, the household-level financial consequences of the projected November emergency declaration unfold along 3 lines. First, the water rates. The City of Corpus Christi water rate structure already includes a tiered penalty for residential consumption above 6,000 gallons per month, with a current penalty rate of approximately $1.80 per 1,000 gallons above the threshold. The published Stage 5 rate restructure raises that penalty to approximately $3 per 1,000 gallons and lowers the threshold to 4,000 gallons per month. The average monthly residential water bill in Nueces County, currently approximately $54, would rise to approximately $79 in the first quarter after Stage 5 activation. Second, the industrial economic effect. The refineries in the Corpus Christi industrial complex employ approximately 12,000 workers directly and support an additional 35,000 jobs indirectly across the region. The industry's published Stage 5 contingency assessments document workforce reduction scenarios, ranging from temporary furloughs to permanent layoffs depending on the duration of the production curtailment. Third, the property valuation effect. The Nueces County Appraisal District has not yet published a Stage 5 analytical memorandum, but the established pattern from similar Texas water supply collapses. Most recently, the Wichita Falls Reservoir collapse of 2014, in which Stage 5 was activated and held for approximately 14 months. Documents residential property valuation compression of approximately 8 to 12% in the most affected unincorporated areas, beginning roughly 6 to 9 months after the formal emergency declaration. The compression effect lasts for approximately 3 to 5 years after the underlying water supply has been restored. The longer-term context for the Corpus Christi collapse is the same as the longer-term context for Lake Mead, the Edwards Aquifer, and every other Western water crisis the Channel has documented. The original engineering basis of design for the Nueces River reservoir system used historical hydrology data covering approximately 80 years of measurement. The underlying assumption was that future hydrology would resemble historical hydrology. The continued period since approximately 2010 has produced a sustained departure from that historical baseline, with the published National Climate Assessment documenting Texas precipitation declines, evaporation increases, and reservoir inflow shortfalls that exceed the variance band of any pre-2010 engineering planning document. The reservoirs were sized for a hydrology that no longer applies. The historical case study that most closely parallels what Corpus Christi is now facing is the Wichita Falls Reservoir collapse of 2014. In that event, the city of Wichita Falls, in north-central Texas, drove its primary reservoirs, Lake Arrowhead and Lake Kickapoo, down to a combined storage of approximately 24% by August of 2014. The City Council activated Stage 5 emergency restrictions in November of 2014 and held them in effect for 14 consecutive months. During that 14-month window, the city of Wichita Falls operated the only direct potable water reuse system in the continental United States, blending highly treated municipal wastewater back into the drinking water supply at approximately 50% of total system input. The system was emergency engineered and constructed in approximately 10 months at a published cost of $13 million, with continuous Texas Commission on Environmental Quality oversight. Wichita Falls was the proof of concept for emergency direct potable reuse in Texas. The City of Corpus Christi has internal engineering studies on whether a similar system could be deployed at the city's Stevens wastewater treatment plant. But the published preliminary cost estimate runs between $35 and $60 million, and the construction timeline runs approximately 12 to 18 months. As with the Padre Island desalination plant, the timeline does not fit the projected November Stage 5 window. The Texas Water Code provisions that govern Stage 5 emergency operations deserve a closer look because they are extraordinary. Chapter 11 of the Texas Water Code, originally enacted in 1967 and substantially revised in 2007 and again in 2021, authorizes the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality and, by delegation, individual incorporated municipalities to commandeer privately held water assets during a declared emergency. The provisions apply to private wells, to private rainwater catchment systems above approximately 250 gallons of storage capacity, to industrial process water in stockpile, and to bottled water in commercial inventory. Compensation to the asset owner is set at the published prevailing market rate at the time of commandeering. Enforcement is by Texas Department of Public Safety with municipal police support. The provisions have never been activated at scale in the modern Texas regulatory record. The Wichita Falls Stage 5 emergency operated entirely on municipal supply and direct potable reuse without invoking Chapter 11. Corpus Christi, with a larger industrial demand base, may not have the same option. The petroleum refining industry's published Stage 5 contingency assessments document a particular cascade that has not received public attention. Roughly 40% of the United States' total refined gasoline supply that reaches the Atlantic seaboard passes through pipeline systems whose Gulf Coast origin points include the Corpus Christi refining complex. The Colonial Pipeline, the Plantation Pipeline, and the Magellan Pipeline systems all draw partially from Corpus Christi area refineries. A Stage 5 driven temporary refinery curtailment at the Corpus Christi complex would manifest at the consumer level as wholesale gasoline. Price increases of approximately 15 to 25 cents per gallon across the Southeast and Mid-Atlantic states, with the published Energy Information Administration assessment estimating the price disruption window at approximately 6 to 12 weeks. The wholesale disruption would then take approximately 10 to 14 days to propagate to the retail pump. The downstream households affected by the projected Corpus Christi Stage 5 activation extend across approximately 14 states. For the household within the Corpus Christi service area, the practical question is not whether Stage 5 will be activated. It is when. The city's most optimistic published scenario assumes sustained tropical rainfall above the historical July through September, average across the entire Nueces River Basin, which would partially refill Choke Canyon and Lake Corpus Christi. The optimistic scenario delays Stage 5 activation into early 2027, but does not avoid it. The most pessimistic published scenario, assuming July through September rainfall below the historical 5th percentile, activates Stage 5 in late September or early October. Tropical activity in the western Gulf of Mexico is the single variable on which the timing depends, and tropical activity is fundamentally unpredictable until the storms form. If you are in the Corpus Christi service area, Nueces County, San Patricio County, Aransas County, Kleberg County, or any of the smaller surrounding communities that pull water through the Corpus Christi system, drop your zip code or county in the comments. The channel is building a regional map of the household impacts as readers report them, and the comments section is where the most accurate ground-level data has been coming from. The city and the state publish the macro numbers. The readers publish the micro. If you have noticed a change in your municipal water pressure, in your rate structure, or in your neighbor's well, that is the data we want to see. The published responses being considered by the city for the next 12 months include 3 categories of action. The first is emergency conservation, including the municipal landscape conversion program that funds homeowners to replace high water turf with drought-tolerant native landscaping, currently capped at $500 per household, and which the city has discussed raising to $1,200 in the next budget cycle. The second is emergency supply augmentation, including the proposal for a $40 million emergency desalination plant to be located on Padre Island, drawing brackish groundwater from the underlying Gulf Coast aquifer system. The desalination plant's construction timeline is approximately 18 to 24 months. It would not be online before the projected November emergency declaration. The third is emergency procurement of trucked water, which the city has begun pre-negotiating with regional water haulers, and which would supplement municipal supply during the worst weeks of the projected emergency. The trucked water emergency procurement budget for fiscal year 2027 is approximately $14 million. For households outside the Corpus Christi service area, the relevance is the documented pattern. Every American metropolitan water system was originally engineered with a finite reservoir buffer and a basis of design hydrology drawn from historical record. The Corpus Christi collapse is one of approximately 12 metropolitan water systems across the South and Southwest that are currently published as operating outside their basis of design hydrology. The list includes Phoenix, Las Vegas, Tucson, El Paso, Albuquerque, San Antonio, Austin, Corpus Christi itself, Wichita Falls, San Angelo, Lubbock, and Amarillo. Each has its own published contingency plan. Each is operating in conditions that the original engineers did not plan for. The pattern is not random. The pattern is the published hydrology of the contemporary American Southwest. The disaster awareness kit linked in the channel banner and pinned to the top comment is the field manual that translates this kind of federal and state update into household-level protocols. The same 6 federal hazard maps walked through chapter by chapter for your address. The 72-hour kit composition with item-level recommendations and approximate costs. The 3 water filtration tiers for households on private wells. The document inventory that determines whether a household recovers from a major event in weeks or in years. The annual review discipline. 48 pages, $39. One-time payment, instant PDF. 30-day refund guarantee. The channel will always be free. The kit is the deeper translation for the household that wants to act on what it watches. The next published Choke Canyon and Lake Corpus Christi storage reading is tomorrow morning. The city's quarterly water supply outlook is scheduled for early June. The Stage 5 threshold could be revised at any point if the reservoir trajectory accelerates. If you have not yet pulled the Texas Water Development Board reservoir page for your nearest reservoir, the United States Geological Survey water data portal for your county, the United States Drought Monitor classification for your zip code, or the Federal Emergency Management Agency hazard map for your address, those tools are linked in the description below. They are the same federal and state data the City of Corpus Christi operates from. They are free. Choke Canyon is at 7.2%. Lake Corpus Christi is at 11.2%. Combined storage is 8.5%. The City of Corpus Christi is 6 months from emergency declaration. We will be documenting it as it happens. Subscribe and turn notifications on for the next update. We are Fractured Ground.